Welcome back to another Crime Rush video. Today we are doing an update on the Ruby, Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt case. Now I'm sure by now most are familiar with this case, but if you're not, go and check out my full video on it. You can click on it at the top of the screen and then be sure to make your way back to this video to see the update. The moment of sentencing has finally arrived. On Tuesday the 20th of February, both Ruby, Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt received their sentences in court. To be honest, I found the entire thing quite bizarre. But before I dive into Jodi and Ruby's statements, I think it's important to at least briefly cover the type of abuse these children suffered at the hands of these two. And I think the state prosecutor summed it up pretty well, and I'd like to play that clip for you now.
What's the state's position regarding sentencing?
Your Honor, I'll stand up. The state respectfully requests that the court sentence Ms. Franke to consecutive prison terms for each of the 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. This sentence was agreed to by Ms. Franke in her plea agreement and is also recommended by adult probation and parole. She committed horrible acts of child abuse. From May to August in 2023, Ms. Franke and her business partner held her 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were isolated from others and were hidden when people came to visit the house where the children and the defendants were staying. The children were forced to do physical tasks like carrying loaded boxes up and down stairs and wall sits or sitting against a wall without a chair or a stool for hours at a time. They were also forced to do manual labor outdoors in the extreme summer heat, at times without shoes or socks. They were forced to stand outside on a cement patio in the summer heat for hours and even days at a time. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July. Both children had extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization when they were found. The injuries from the binding to the 12-year-old are particularly awful. In addition to physical abuse, the children were emotionally abused to the extent that each believed, to some degree, that they deserved what was being done to them. Had the older of the children not had the courage to run away and ask a neighbor to call the police, heaven only knows how much longer he could have survived in that situation. After being caught, Ms. Franke has shown considerable remorse, as evidenced by agreeing to serve consecutive prison terms and being willing to cooperate with the state against Ms. Hildebrandt. However, given the severity of the abuse she inflicted, consecutive terms are appropriate in this case.
That is just horrific and terribly sad, and my heart really just goes out to all of those children. From the get-go, something just didn't sit right for me with Jodi. Since the whole story broke, so many people have come forward to tell their stories of how she manipulated them, abused them, and really led them down a horrible and evil path. There were even men who came forward claiming that Jodi had turned their wives against them and caused the end of their marriages. Even family members claimed to have been wronged by her. So what is it about this woman that makes people follow her advice? Another important thing to note is that Jodi and Ruby are both Mormons, and I think the worst part of all of this is that they did this under the pretense or belief that it was for religious reasons. That's just disgusting on another level. But now let's listen to what Jodi had to say.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution as an outcome.
What stands out for me here is that there is no apology, and she claims to love these children. That just makes my blood boil, because how could she possibly love these children when she deliberately caused them so much pain? The next thing I'd like to mention is that she still continues to play the victim. She's almost saying, oh, poor me, I chose to plead guilty and avoid a trial because I didn't want to cause more damage to the children. But Jodi, these children are damaged because of you in the first place. But I love the judge's response, and keep in mind the judge is also Mormon, and at first this concerned me, but I was very happy with how he handled things. Here's what he had to say to Jodi.
Ms. Hildebrandt, this circumstance is tragic. It's largely, of course, of your making. By any measure, your conduct in this case was disastrous for these children. Adults are supposed to protect children. Adults with specialized training in particular are supposed to protect children. You didn't do that in this case. In this case, you terrorized children, and the results have been tragic. It's what happened to these children, and your philosophy in dealing with them frankly seems detached from reality or any objective standard of decency or even common sense.
I could not have said that better myself. Now we're moving on to Ruby. Last we heard, Ruby pleaded guilty to all counts of CA charges against her. And she also had a statement at her sentencing hearing. And let me tell you, this was more of what people are calling an Oscar acceptance speech. She thanks so many people, all who were involved in bringing her to justice. She was basically thanking them for saving her own children from her. I'll only play a small part of what Ruby said as it drags on, but she definitely sounded more remorseful than Jodi did. I'll let you decide. Here's some of what she had to say.
I would like to make a statement without any intent to change my stipulated sentence. For the past 4 years, I've chosen to follow counsel and guidance that has led me into a dark delusion. My distorted version of reality went largely unchecked, as I would isolate from anyone who challenged me. I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, church leaders who lie and lust, husbands who refuse to protect, and children who need abused. My choice to believe and behave this paranoia culminated into criminal activity for which I stand before you today ready to take accountability. Jodi Hildebrandt was never my business partner, nor was I ever employed by her. I have never received wages from her or connections. Jodi was employed as my son's counselor in 2019, and in 2020 I paid her to be my mentor. It is important to me to demonstrate my remorse and regret without blame. I take full accountability for my choices, and it is my preference that I serve a prison sentence. Thank you to the officers in Santa Clara and the Ivan City Police, Nick Hellman, Brian Palufo, Cy Pickuvit, Mike Pondoyo in Tobler, John Ward.
Reports claim that her husband Kevin Franke was present in court and that he sobbed when she addressed him. Even though Ruby at least apologized, she didn't miss the opportunity to point the finger right back at Jodi. She claimed she was made to distrust authorities and to believe that this world is evil. But I'm sorry, nobody, I don't care who you are, you'll never be able to convince me to hurt my child. Both Ruby and Jodi were sentenced. Both received 4 separate prison sentences for 1 to 15 years, which will run consecutively. The length of each prison sentence will ultimately be decided by the Utah Board of Pardons and Parole. However, the woman will not serve more than 30 years due to a Utah law regarding consecutive sentences. Okay, so now I have to know your thoughts on this. What do you think of the sentencing? And what do you think of their statements? Drop your opinions in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, liking the video doesn't mean you like the crime. It just means you enjoyed the coverage of it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one, and as always, stay safe.